Alright, so I was planning on having this out around May. So, sorry. Anyway, welcome to a brand new What If. This time, we're going to take a look back in the 80s, the mid 80s. A real what could have been scenario. You already saw the title of the video, though. This is What If Tim Richmond never got AIDS. We're just going to pretend like in an era like the 80s where a man of good looks and of good money would not be a complete playboy. We're going to pretend like he's going to keep it in his pants, unlike that one poster from, what was it, 1987? 86? One of the two. We're going to pretend like that doesn't happen. As unrealistic as it may be, but we're going to pretend like it didn't happen. So basically, Tim Richmond, he started out in the open wheel world. He was at Indianapolis a few times, and then he decided, you know what, screw this, I'm going to NASCAR, and then he started winning immediately. After a couple of seasons where he just won a here and there, he went to Hendrick and won 7 times. Unfortunately, he ended up missing the start of 1987 due to the, I don't think this was AIDS, but it was something else. I think. I'm probably wrong, but he had a tearful comeback that season, but then he still died in 1989. So it was a nice comeback story. It made a good movie. Basically, is what I'm trying to say, is it made a good movie. And yeah. But we're going to pretend like that didn't happen. This time, we're going to say that he kept it in his pants. And in 1987, instead of getting AIDS and missing Daytona, where Benny Parsons was the substitute driver and actually finished second to Bill Elliott in that race. Well, this universe, Tim Richmond doesn't get AIDS, so he's just perfectly fine to race in 1987. And there's really no reason to believe that he'd outrun Bill Elliott. That was kind of his Daytona 500 to win, so let's just say Richmond equals Benny Parsons' finish and gets a top 5 with some laps led. Now, if there's something that you probably, if you've watched all of my What If videos, there's something that I do keep consistent, and that is the fact that when someone blows an engine, when like the original team, like in the first few years where there'd be very little difference, if they blow an engine or have some other mechanical failure, that's probably still going to happen. Even like within 3 years, I'd say. I don't know what I did for this one, but in the second race of 1987, Dale Earnhardt won and Benny Parsons blew the engine. So you gotta assume that Richmond also blows the engine, and the resulting finish is 34th. Race number 3. In real life, Richmond... What? Oh, sorry. I'm fucking stupid. The track is Richmond. God fucking damn it, I'm sorry. Oh man, I better cut that out. They went to the race at Richmond. I'm sorry, I didn't have the race name for race 2. I'm dumb. Anyway, Dale won. Benny Parsons finished 10th, but he was actually involved in a wreck in that race. So in the What If universe, Earnhardt still wins and Tim Richmond gets 7th. Race number 4, we go to Atlanta. In real life, Ricky Rudd won and Benny Parsons finished 2nd. You know, Benny Parsons low-key was really, really good in the 25 in 1987. So in the What If universe, Tim Richmond will win this race and actually moves into 4th in points. So he's off to a good start for his season. Race number 5 is at Darlington. Dale Earnhardt won and Benny Parsons finished 21st after wrecking. But in the What If universe, Richmond is going to get 8th with laps led, but he's just losing points to Dale Earnhardt at this point. It's just a downward spiral. We're only 5 races in, but the gap is getting really big. So race number 7 took us to North Wilkesboro. In real life, Dale Earnhardt won and Benny Parsons finished 15th. So this isn't actually Tim Richmond's best track, but he still manages to get 9th. Keeps him in 4th in points. The next race is Bristol, where Dale Earnhardt won, because that's all he did in the mid-80s. I'm sorry, that's just the way it was. But in this universe, Tim Richmond is going to win with Dale Earnhardt finishing 2nd. And that was after Benny Parsons wrecked in real life. You know, when I said that Benny Parsons low-key had a really good season, I forgot about the wrecks. Race number 8 was Martinsville. In real life, Dale Earnhardt won and Benny Parsons blew an engine. So obviously the engine is still going to have to blow up, but it's not too bad. Richmond gets 26th with laps led, and he's actually moves into 3rd in the standings. Race number 9 is Talladega. This is where Davey Allison got his first career win. Benny Parsons finished 12th and Earnhardt finished 4th. In this universe, Davey Allison wins it. Richmond actually ends up in 4th place, displacing Dale Earnhardt back to 5th. The 1987 Coke 600 was won by Kyle Petty. He led, and he actually finished as the only car on the lead lap. So you have to imagine that probably still happens. Tim Richmond is going to end up 26th after, of course, Benny Parsons blows yet another engine in real life. So you got to imagine engines keep going. And Dale Earnhardt doesn't have that great of a race. He ends up 20th, but he still is gaining points on Tim Richmond. So that's not the greatest of news for anyone involved. Race number 11. This is Dover. Davey Allison won his 2nd career race here, and Benny Parsons finished 5th in the real world. Well, this universe, we're going to say that Davey Allison wins, Richmond gets 3rd, and Dale Earnhardt gets 5th. But Dale Earnhardt's having such a good season that he's still 270 points ahead of Tim Richmond at this point. Alright, so in real life, race number 12, this was Tim Richmond's return race after missing the start of the season, and this is where he got his tearful comeback win and all that. This is his best track statistically. Pocono is Tim Richmond's best track, so you have to imagine he's going to easily win, and Earnhardt's going to end up 5th, but that only gives Tim Richmond around 15 points. He's 255 back at this point. Race number 13 in real life was Riverside. Richmond also won this race. Riverside is also one of Tim Richmond's best tracks, so you have to imagine that he's going to win it. Dale Earnhardt finishes 7th here. 1987, Michigan. Dale Earnhardt in real life won this race, with Tim Richmond in real life finishing 4th. I'm going to say that the momentum is on the side of Tim Richmond. You have to imagine that he'd probably finish in the same place if he hadn't gotten injured, if you can call Ains an injury. But for the sake of the argument, I'm going to say that Tim Richmond gets his 3rd straight win in the what if. Earnhardt finishes 2nd with the most laps led, and we'll end it from there. Race 15, Daytona. Bobby Allison won this race in real life. Tim Richmond finished 22nd. We're going to say no changes to this one. Allison still wins. Richmond still finishes 22nd, and he loses a bunch of points to Dale Earnhardt in this race. Once again, in real life, this is where Tim Richmond was gone again. And it's very unfortunate because this is Pocono. Dale Earnhardt wins this race with Benny Parsons finishing 4th. Once again, best track. You have to imagine that Tim Richmond wins this race. And Dale Earnhardt finishes 2nd. Race number 17, Talladega. In real life, Bill Elliott won with Tim Richmond finishing 11th. No changes to this one. Richmond is now 298 points behind Dale Earnhardt. So, the next race is race number 18, Watkins Glen. Rusty Wallace won this race with Tim Richmond finishing 10th. No changes once again, and Richmond loses another 10 points to Earnhardt. Race number 19. This one is Bill Elliott winning at Michigan. Tim Richmond finished 26th because them Hendrick engines back in 1987 were absolute trash. And then blew up again. So this was actually Tim Richmond's final race ever in real life. But obviously in the what if, he does not have AIDS. So that's not a problem. Race number 20. Dale Earnhardt won this race with BP blowing an engine. So you have to imagine that Tim Richmond is once again going to blow the engine. But they keep getting 26. Like the engines, they lasted for a good amount of the race. They just didn't make it to the end. Because he keeps finishing 26th even when he blows the engines. And this is, you know. So, other engines were blowing, but you know, his engine just happened to blow out as well. Race number 21 in the 1987 season is the Southern 500. Dale Earnhardt wins after Benny Parson wrecks in real life. In this what if, Tim Richmond wins. Dale Earnhardt finishes second. But Tim Richmond, after all these blown engines, he's down to 487 points back to Dale Earnhardt, which is insane. So, race number 22, we're back at Richmond. Dale Earnhardt won with Benny Parsons finishing 16th. We're going to say that Earnhardt wins this race still, but Richmond is going to finish second. But even still, he's losing points whenever he finishes behind Earnhardt, even if he's finishing second, which is just the sad... You know, when I was making this what if, I was trying so hard to get him to the championship in 87, but it's just not practical. It's not a practical goal to be able to set when he keeps blowing all these engines. Race number 23 is Dover. Ricky Rudd wins this race with Benny Parsons finishing 6th. We're going to say that Rudd still wins this race. Richmond finishes 4th. And actually in this race, Earnhardt blew an engine, which is just like something that doesn't happen in real life. But it actually happened at Dover in 1987 in race 23. So now the points deficit is finally down below 400 at 397 points back. It's not looking good for Tim, guys. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. Race number 24, Daryl Waltrip won this race in real life. Dale Earnhardt finished second, and Benny Parson finished 23rd. Can you guess what happened? That's right. It's an engine. Tim Richmond ends up finishing 23rd as a result. He's now back to 473 points back. It's just never ending. Race number 25, we're back to North Wilkesboro, and actually, I think Terry Labonte won this race in real life, and Earnhardt finished second with Benny Parsons finishing 19th, but it's not due to an engine for once. You know what that means. That means Terry Labonte wins over Tim Richmond in 3rd place and Earnhardt in 4th. I'm trying, guys. I'm desperately trying to get him this championship, but it's just not possible. Race number 26 is at Charlotte. Bill Elliott won with Earnhardt finishing 11th. Guess who blew an engine? That's right, Benny Parsons, which means Tim Richmond finishes 38th in the What If universe. Rockingham is race 27. Bill Elliott won this race with Earnhardt finishing 2nd and Benny Parsons finishing 15th in real life. Richmond's going to finish 4th in this race, but Dale Earnhardt's going to finish 2nd, so he loses points anyway. Moving on to race 28, we're back to Riverside. Rusty Wallace won this race in real life. Benny Parsons finished 2nd, which is insane to think. And Dale Earnhardt blew an engine. What is this universe? Tim Richmond is only going to finish 2nd. He is unable to dethrone Rusty. And he actually manages to gain points. He's down to 453 back with 1 race left in the season. Can he do it? Can Tim Richmond win the championship? We'll find out right now, after this commercial break. No. Race number 29, the final race of the season, is Atlanta. Bill Elliott wins this race with Dale Earnhardt finishing 2nd and Benny Parsons finishing 7th in real life. But in the What If universe, Bill Elliott wins, Tim Richmond finishes 2nd, and Dale Earnhardt finishes 3rd. Which means that in 1987, Dale Earnhardt wins the championship by 448 points over Tim Richmond and 468 points over Bill Elliott. But Richmond has back-to-back 7-win seasons. He gets 7 wins in the end, 16 top 5s, and 20 top 10s. Those engines just killed him. It just killed him. So that's how that goes. And that's 1987. Let's get into the silly season, as it turns out. So, in 1987, Hendrick is looking like this. The 5 car is driven full-time by Jeffrey Bodine, who is basically, you know, the team's main driver and has always been the team's main driver ever since he basically saved the team back in whatever year that was, 83, 82, one or the other. Darrell Waltrip is driving the 17. Tim Richmond is still driving the 25, and the 35 is actually a part-time car with a few, you know, bits and pieces drivers that are floating around looking to make races. Ken Schrader is the one who took over the 25 in real life. So where does he go in the What If universe? Well, he actually goes to Larry McClure Racing in the number 4. Now, if you're anything like me, you're running the racing reference right now and finding out who drove the number 4 in 1988, and you would find out that it is Rick Wilson. Now, he's actually going to end up going to a second Mach 1 racing car, and he's actually going to race alongside Harry Gant, and Harry Gant's number 33. And if you want to, you can say that maybe Rick Wilson runs like one race in the 35, since that's part-time anyway. Just to, further prove that he's completely useless. Poor Rick Wilson. He could have done something. He had so many chances to do something with his life, but just never did. He is the modern day AJ Allmendinger without the road course win, I gotta say. 1988. It's a brand new year and brand new cars, which means, does this mean that Tim Richmond doesn't blow engines constantly? Well, you're just gonna have to wait and find out. So race number 1 was the Daytona 500, where Bobby Allison won over Davey Allison. And Ken Schrader, driving the 25, got 6th place in real life. Well, there's going to be no changes to that nonsense. Tim Richmond will still finish 6th, which sets him up good to start off the season. He's minus 30 from the points lead. Race number 2 is Richmond. Neil Bonnet won this race, and Ken Schrader actually DNQ'd. Well, you have to imagine that Tim Richmond is not going to DNQ. There's even with a fluke DNQ for Ken Schrader, because Ken Schrader wasn't even that bad in the 25. He honestly, he was very consistent. He didn't have race-winning pace like other drivers at Hendrick did, but he was consistent, dude. He was up there in the top 10 in points every season. That's not saying much, because this was the 80s, and if you don't blow an engine every week, you could probably finish in the top 10 in the standings. But still, Ken Schrader, underrated. I would say top 5 underrated drivers of all time. Ken Schrader would be on that list. Moving on to the actual point at hand. In real life, Ken Schrader DNQ'd. We're going to say that Tim Richmond gets 11th place, because obviously if Schrader DNQ'd, there's probably something up with the car, so it's probably going to be off pace. So let's say he finishes 11th and goes up to 5th in the standings, minus 65. Race number 3 is Rockingham. Neil Bonnet won this race as well. I can't believe it either. And Ken Schrader got 10th. Well, I was just building up Ken Schrader as being one of the most underrated drivers of all time. Now I'm going to shit all over him, because Tim Richmond is going to get 4th in that same race in the What If. He goes up to 3rd in points, but he's actually losing points to Neil Bonnet, who is the points leader, minus 80. Race number 4 was Atlanta. Dale Earnhardt wins this race in real life, and Ken Schrader got 8th. Tim Richmond is going to get 6th with laps led, and that's going to boost him up to 2nd in points, only 23 back. Race number 5 was Darlington. Lake Speed wins this race. I'm just as shocked as you are reading it back, and Ken Schrader wrecked and finished 29th after winning the pole. So you can see that the Hendrick speed is there, despite the fact that he lost the DNQ in race 2. I'm just going to say, because Lake Speed winning is the most incredible thing that I've ever read, so I'm just going to say that Tim Richmond is going to get 2nd to Lake Speed in this race, and he's actually going to get the points lead as a result. So that's pretty cool. Race number 6 is Bristol. Bill Elliott wins over Ken Schrader in 8th in real life. In the What If universe, Tim Richmond is going to finish 8th as well, and he's going to keep the points lead. Race number 7 is North Wilkesboro. I think Bobby Labonte goes back-to-back in North Wilkesboro in real life, and he's going to win over Ken Schrader, who finished 11th. In the What If universe, Tim Richmond is going to get 7th and leads by only 21 points over Earnhardt in the standings. Race number 8 is Martinsville. Dale Earnhardt won, and Ken Schrader finished 10th in real life. Now, statistically, Martinsville, I'm going to honestly say, is probably Tim Richmond's worst track. So I'm going to give him 14th in this race, and he's going to lose the points lead. He's going to be 31 back to Earnhardt. Race number 9 is Talladega, where we got Phil Parsons' only win. Very strange season. Neil Bonnet wins back-to-back. Phil Parsons wins. Lake Speed wins. I mean, And Ken Schrader finished 5th. Now it's a plate race, and I know I've made some changes to plate races already, but I'm just going to say no changes in this race. Richmond actually closes the points gap on Earnhardt, who I'm guessing blew an engine or something in this race, whatever. Race number 10 is the World 600, guys. Darrell Waltrip won this race over Ken Schrader in real life. Tim Richmond is going to end up getting 3rd, and he's going to get that points lead back. And he's going to have it by 27 points over Earnhardt. Race number 11. Bill Elliott won this in real life, and Ken Schrader got 21st. Richmond is actually going to get 8th in this race, and he's going to continue to lead the points. So he's starting to put an actual cushion between him and Earnhardt at this point. Race number 12 is Riverside. Rusty Wallace won this race over Ken Schrader, who finished 21st. So, yeah, once again, one of his best tracks, one of Richmond's best tracks, so he's going to win this, and he's going to absolutely pile onto that points lead. So, race number 13 is Pocono. Which Bodine is this? Jeff Bodine, I'm sorry. Jeff Bodine won this race in real life. Race number 13 is Pocono. Jeff Bodine won this race in real life over Ken Schrader, who finished 9th, and Dale Earnhardt blew an engine. But Tim Richmond is unable to win this race, which means that his 4 straight wins at Pocono streak is broken, but he still has a sizable points lead. Race number 14 was Michigan. Rusty Wallace won. Ken Schrader finished 6th in real life. We're going to say that Richmond got 4th. And he actually loses points to Dale Earnhardt. Actually, no, it's Rusty Wallace in 2nd in points now. It's over by 130 points. Race number 15 was Daytona. Bill Elliott won over Rick Wilson. I said Rick Wilson did nothing with his life, but he did finish 2nd. He did finish 2nd once, and Ken Schrader got 8th. We're actually going to say that in the What If universe, Ken Schrader in the Morgan McClure number 4 wins the Daytona race over Bill Elliott. Richmond gets 5th. Now this is important. This is going to come back to this is going to have very, very big implications in the future. Race number 16 is Pocono. Elliott Sadler. Elliott Sadler? What fucking year is it, Kamikaze? You fucking idiot. Elliott Sadler. Bill Elliott won over Ken Schrader in 2nd. In the What If universe, we're going to say that Bill Elliott gets it in a photo finish over Tim Richmond, just for, the fun of photo finishes. Because I like photo finishes. I don't care what you say. Race number 17 is Talladega. Can you imagine that? Race 15 in real life today being Daytona, then you go to Pocono, then you go to Talladega. That'd be some... it would get it out of the chase. That'd be okay, I suppose. That'd be beneficial. So, race 17, Talladega. Now, there's a reason that I said Ken Schrader won Daytona. Because Ken Schrader won the Talladega race over Jeff Bodine. Well, we're going to continue that trend. We're going to say that the Morgan McClure... Ken Schrader wins back-to-back plate races over Bodine and Tim Richmond. Tim Richmond in the top 5. I don't have a specific spot on the right here. Race number 18 is Watkins Glen, where Ricky Rudd won over Ken Schrader in 10th in real life. But in the What If universe, Richmond is going to have he's going to have the 10th place finish that Schrader had. But he still has the points lead. It's now 103 points over Rusty Wallace. Race 19. Davey Allison won this, and Ken Schrader got 13th. We're going to say that Tim Richmond gets 9th and leads Rusty Wallace only by 63 points now. It's starting to get closer, guys. Ooh, it's getting close. Race number 20 is Bristol. Dale Earnhardt won after Ken Schrader wrecked. While in the What If universe, Richmond is going to get 10th, and that points lead is just dropping. Even despite getting these good finishes, it's still dropping. Race 21 is Darlington. Southern 500, baby. Bill Elliott won this race over Ken Schrader in 11th in real life, but Tim Richmond is going to get 6th. But he's losing points. He's now only 15 points to the good over Bill Elliott. Race 22 is Richmond. Davey Allison won, and Ken Schrader got 18th in real life, but Richmond, ironically, is one of Tim Richmond's best tracks. I'm going to say that he gets 2nd, and now he's back up to 55 points over Bill Elliott. Race 23 is Dover. Bill Elliott won this race in real life after Ken Schrader wrecked. We're going to say that Richmond gets 4th place, but the points lead. It's coming down. It's back to 30 points. Oh, we're coming down to the end of the season. Can Tim do it? Race 24 is going to be Martinsville. Darrell Waltrip won this over Ken Schrader in 4th. Now, despite the fact that I said that Tim Richmond's worst track is Martinsville, I'm going to say no changes to this just because of the momentum that he should have off of being the points leader. So we're going to say that he finishes 4th and leads by 35. Race 25 is Charlotte. Rusty Wallace won this race in real life. Ken Schrader finished 7th. We're going to say that Tim Richmond wins this race. Charlotte's a good track for Hendrick. Charlotte's a good track for Richmond. Now his points lead is back up to 62. Race number 26 is North Wilkesboro. Rusty Wallace won this in real life after Ken Schrader finishes 8th. No changes to this one. Richmond's going to continue to lead the points as we head into Rockingham, race 27. Wallace wins again, and Ken Schrader got 11th in real life. Well, Tim Richmond ain't laying down. He's going to win Rockingham over Rusty Wallace. Take that points lead gap being shortened at Wilkesboro. Anyway, race 28 is Phoenix, and this was Alan Kulwicki's first win in real life, and Ken Schrader got 14th. Am I heartless enough to take away Alan Kulwicki's first win? No, I am not. Richmond gets 6th, but he still leads the points by 41. Race 29 is Atlanta, and 3 drivers go into this race. Actually, I think 4 drivers go into this race with a chance at the championship. In real life, Rusty Wallace won this race, and Ken Schrader finished 6th. Ooh, it's going to be close. No changes in this race. Richmond's going to get 6th and win the championship by only 11 points. Golly. Golly. That's how it's done, guys. Tim Richmond is the champion in 1988. Boy, howdy. And it wasn't that rough of a road getting there because he didn't blow an engine the entire season, which is kind of what helped. Because, you see, Earnhardt kept blowing engines over the course of the season. And you could say that's the reason why. But, yeah. So, there you go. Richmond wins the championship in 1988. At season's close, he ends out the year with 3 wins, 13 top 5s, and he had top 10s in 25 of 29 races. That's how you win a championship, ladies and gentlemen. That right there. That is a championship season. Well, now let's get to another part of the season, which is the silly season. There's going to be no changes at Hendrick. The part-time car is going to shut down. But it's still going to be Jeffrey Bodine in the 5, Darrell Waltrip in the 17, and Tim Richmond in the 25. Ken Schrader. Remember when I said that his win would have implications? Well, Ken Schrader is actually going to sign a long-term contract with McClure after his 2-win season. So he's going to be in the 4 for a while. That should get interesting. And actually, Ken Schrader finished 8th in the standings in the What If universe. So that's, even for the McClure team, that's pretty good. But yeah. 1989. We are here in 1989. In the first race, Darrell Waltrip won the Daytona 500. Now we're going to keep it that way. Sorry. Let me start that over. And now we're into the good year of 1989. Since Tim Richmond won the championship, we can finally not go race by race, and we can just kind of have a season overview because this is a half an hour long, and I'm not sure how much longer I'll be able to record it for. So, now what you going to do? Darrell Waltrip won the Daytona 500, just like in real life. Richmond is still a race contender, but he doesn't have that consistency of 1988. The blown engines are back with a vengeance. He does manage to get 2 wins, though. The championship is going to be between Rusty Wallace. And it's going to be between Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt. Just like in real life, and just like in real life, Rusty Wallace is going to win the championship over Earnhardt in second, Mark Martin in third, Darrell Waltrip in fourth, Tim Richmond gets 5th in the standings, Ken Schrader gets 11th in the standings for McClure, but doesn't actually win a race. But actually, this season has implications beyond the fact that in real life he died in 1989. No, the implications is that after one of Tim Richmond's wins, he over-celebrated. No! How could he? Which means that Dale Earnhardt, the man himself, is going to paint the target. Richmond is a marked man. People are going to be racing him like assholes. What you going to do, though? Poor Tim Richmond. Things are not going to get easier for him as this goes on. So, now we get to the 1989 silly season heading into 1990. Jeff Bodine leaves Hendrick for Junior Johnson's team, and he ends up being replaced by Ricky Rudd. So, Ricky Rudd's now in the 5, with Darrell Waltrip still in the 17 and Tim Richmond still in the 25. Brett Bodine is going to be replacing Ricky Rudd wherever he was before, and Brett Bodine is going to be replaced by Morgan Shepherd. Just in case you were running over to Racing Reference. So in 1990, Ricky Rudd and Tim Richmond have personalities that absolutely clash with each other. Richmond's a flamboyant, big-time movie star-looking guy, and Ricky Rudd's the super serious, silver-haired, Iron Man guy, dude, person. They don't get along. And with Dale Earnhardt painting the target on Richmond at the end of '89, that doesn't help him. That doesn't help his cause either. So obviously, Dale Earnhardt is going to spend his entire season harassing Tim Richmond because that's what Dale Earnhardt does. He's an asshole. Tim Richmond is actually going to get one single solitary win in 1990, and it's going to come at Bristol. But the most important part of all is that Derek Cope, #IHopeAndCope, still wins the Daytona 500. Don't worry. Brett Bodine still wins North Wilkesboro in interesting fashion. Ernie Irvan is going to replace Bobby Hillin early in the year in the 8 car for the Stavler brothers. And the championship is going to end the same way that it does in real life. As depressing as it is, I can't find an excuse for Mark Martin to win the 1990 championship. It's still going to be Earnhardt winning it. Jeff Bodine ends up 3rd place in the Junior Johnson team. Tim Richmond will end up 4th in the standings, despite having the target painted on him and all that. Ken Schrader in Morgan McClure's 4 team ends up 10th. And Ernie Irvan, doing the split season with multiple teams, ends up 14th. So, at the end of 1990, Darrell Waltrip leaves Hendrick to form his own team, just like in real life. And this is going to leave no mediation between Rudd and Richmond now. Despite the fact that they were rubbing heads in 1990, Darrell Waltrip was always there to defuse the situation. But now Darrell Waltrip's going to be gone. Which means shit's about to go down, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, no changes beyond that. So, in 1991, Ken Schrader is going to win the Daytona 500 for Morgan McClure. Yay! I'm happy about it. Ricky Rudd and Tim Richmond just absolutely despise each other. And instead of wrecking Davey Allison at Sears Point, Ricky Rudd is actually going to wreck Tim Richmond. So, that's interesting. But Davey Allison's still going to win that race because he was running 3rd. Oh, man. NASCAR nonsense, man. NASCAR nonsense. Ernie Irvan's going to win Michigan over Dale Jarrett. That means that Dale Jarrett has 0 career wins now. I'm sorry, Dale. Not really. Dale Earnhardt's going to win. Speaking of Dale Earnhardt is going to win the championship over Ricky Rudd. And Rudd is going to accuse Richmond of costing him the title. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness gracious. Dale Earnhardt obviously wins the championship with Rudd second in points. Ken Schrader gets 6th for McClure. My goodness. And Tim Richmond ends up 7th. He has 3 wins over the season, though. So in 1991, Tim Richmond is fed up with Ricky Rudd's bullshit, and he leaves Hendrick Motorsports. He would have left NASCAR entirely if it weren't for Joe Gibbs. Oh yeah, Joe Gibbs Racing hires Tim Richmond to drive the brand new 18 car. Hoo-hoo. Very interesting. And guess who ends up replacing Tim Richmond in the 25? It's Ernie Irvan. After impressing people, I guess, in the 8 or something. I don't know. He's in the 25 now. Dale Jarrett's going to end up staying with the Wood brothers, which means that Morgan Shepherd is going to end up at Junior Johnson's team. And nothing really changes from there. So, in 1992, Tim Richmond actually overperforms with Gibbs' new team. But it's just kind of the same situation as when he first got to Hendrick. It was a lot of speed, but no consistency. But the problem is that brand new team means that they're not going to have the same speed in the cars as the other teams. No wins for Tim Richmond in 1992. However, there are good things happening in NASCAR. Ernie Irvan's quickly becoming a championship contender in his new 25 car. And he's going to win 3 times in 1992. Now, Dale Jarrett, I feel kind of bad of costing him the Joe Gibbs car, so I'm going to give him 1 win at Dover. Ken Schrader, this pains me to say it, but he has an off year despite finishing 6th in the standings the previous season. He's going to drop. But, as far as the championship's concerned, it's still absolute and complete utter nonsense. Alan Kawicki does win the championship over Bill Elliott in 2nd, Davey Allison 3rd, Mark Martin 4th, Kyle Petty 5th, Ricky Rudd 6th, Irvin 7th, Dale Jarrett gets 9th in the standings for Wood Brothers, Tim Richmond 14th, and Ken Schrader 17th. Now we all know what happened at the end of 1992. Richard Petty retires, leaving the 43 open for anyone to take. Ooh. Who's going to take the 43? He won at Dover. Dale Jarrett is the replacement for Richard Petty. And Rick Wilson goes to Wood Brothers after Dale Jarrett vacates that seat. And some nobody named Jeff Gordon joined Hendrick. I don't know if he'll pan out. I don't think it's going to happen, guys. 1993. The year everything sucked. Alan Kawicki and Davey Allison, I don't see any reason that this would change. Both of them are still going to die. Very sad indeed. Allison is replaced actually by Ken Schrader, and Sterling Marlin is going to replace Ken Schrader over at McClure. And Jeff Bodine is going to buy Alan Kawicki's team and run the 7 from here on out. But just like in real life, everyone's basically fighting for scraps behind Dale Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace. So in 1993, Dale Jarrett won the Daytona 500 for Joe Gibbs. But now that he's not in the 18, can Tim Richmond do it? Yeah, probably. We're going to say that Tim Richmond wins the 1993 Daytona 500 over Dale Earnhardt. Ken Schrader will win 1 time with McClure. And then when he jumps over to Yates, he's going to win twice. He's literally just, Ernie Irvan at this point. Except Ernie Irvan is at Hendrick now. And he actually wins 4 times at Hendrick. But, once again, the engines are not appreciating the fact that Ernie Irvan's having a good season. So he actually finishes 6th in the standings. Earnhardt's still going to win the championship over Rusty. Richmond finishes out the season in 4th in the standings. Ken Schrader gets 5th, Ernie Irvan, like I said, 6th, and Dale Jarrett 15th for the King. Now, after 1993 is over, Ricky Rudd, just like in real life, he leaves Hendrick to start his own team and is replaced by Terry Labonte. Ooh, we haven't talked about him since the start of the video, which means that Terry Labonte is now in the 5, Jeff Gordon's still in the 24, Ernie Irvan's still in the 25. Sterling Marlin will sign with McClure after putting up some respectable numbers after replacing Ken Schrader. And Ken Schrader is going to sign with Yates. Ken Schrader's now the full-time driver in the 28 car. Yay, I guess. 1994, just like in real life, Sterling Marlin wins the Daytona 500 in the McClure car. Dale Earnhardt, like always, is completely untouchable. Ernie Irvan does not get injured at Michigan, but sadly, he doesn't get any wins and ends up 6th in the standings. Dale Jarrett wins one time and with the Richard Petty team, but he ends up 11th in the standings. Tim Richmond, good in the standings, good on the track. 4 wins for Joe Gibbs. And 5th in the standings, as Ken Schrader is a championship contender now. But sadly, he does not win the championship. He finishes 2nd to Dale Earnhardt after winning 2 times, 2nd in the standings. Very disappointing. I could, you know what, I probably could have done all of 1994, but Earnhardt was just so good. Like, it's very unlikely Ken Schrader was going to win this championship, even with Yates equipment. But, yeah. So, at the end of 1994, Joe Gibbs is going to open up a second team. Ooh! But this time around, it's actually going to be Tim Richmond, still in the 18, but Bobby Labonte. He is the driver who is going to be joining Joe Gibbs Racing, and they're going to number the car 88. So there you go, Bobby Labonte in the 88 for Joe Gibbs Racing. I know it's a little absurd, just slightly absurd, but what you going to do? Everything else, though, it stays the same. Very boring, silly season. In 1995, Sterling Marlin wins the Daytona 500 again. Yay, I think. But it's really Hendrick's world, and we're all just living in it. 1995, Ernie Irvan, Jeff Gordon, and Terry Labonte combined for 15 of the season's wins. Tim Richmond wins the 2nd ever Brickyard 400. Bobby Labonte wins 3 times, however, for Joe Gibbs. So, ooh, bit of a power struggle taking place there. Ken Schrader ends up finishing only once, but this was a season full of mechanical failures, sad to say. Just like in real life. So, unfortunate. And Dale Jarrett, he's still there. And he actually does manage to steal a win for Petty. At the end of it all, Jeff Gordon is 1st in the standings. Dale Earnhardt 2nd. Irvan in 3rd. Mark Martin 4th. Sterling Marlin 5th. Tim Richmond in 6th. Ken Schrader in 11th, and Dale Jarrett in 13th. And that's how the standings play out in 1995. So, for 1995's silly season, Ernie Irvan is not returning from an injury, so Yates has no reason to actually expand the team. So they're going to stay with one car in the 28 and Ken Schrader. This is probably Ken Schrader's best chance to win the championship, as long as the engines cooperate. So in 1996, Dale Jarrett is going to win the Daytona 500 in the 43. Ooh! Very good, very good, very good stuff, Dale. Ooh, oh, hang on a second. Whoops. Never mind. I misread something there. Hendrick is going to continue to give 0 shits and just absolutely destroy the field. So sorry, Ken Schrader. It's all about Hendrick. Richmond is not going to be able to win due to this. Sterling Marlin manages to find a win. Ernie Irvan wins 3 times, but he is the least winningest driver at Hendrick, unless you count Terry Labonte. Bobby Labonte wins 2 times. Ken Schrader, like I said, this was his best chance at winning the championship, but unfortunately, Hendrick was just an absolute monster of a team. The champion is Terry Labonte. Jeff Gordon gets 2nd in the standings. Ernie Irvan 3rd. Ken Schrader 4th. Sterling Marlin 9th. Dale Jarrett in 10th. Bobby Labonte in 11th. And Tim Richmond in 12th. Oh no, Tim Richmond. Speaking of Tim Richmond, at the end of 1996, he is still kind of salty that Hendrick never backed him up when Ricky Rudd was being a douche. And now that he's, you know, having issues and not being able to do stuff, he's not having good seasons anymore because Gibbs is maybe showing favoritism to Bobby Labonte. I don't know. Probably not. But the point that I'm trying to make is that Tim Richmond is going to set out in 1997 to race Gordon every week as hard as he possibly can, just to get back at Rick Hendrick for not backing him up when Ricky Rudd was being a douche. So, welcome to 1997, the year of my birth, everyone. Yay. Am I still born in this what-if universe? You're just going to have to wait and find out. Sterling Marlin is going to fall off because McClure is starting to suck. So he's only going to get 25th in the standings with no wins. Ernie Irvin's going to get 2 wins. And Terry Labonte's only going to get 1, sorry. Irvin gets 2 wins. Terry Labonte with just 1. Bobby Labonte, on the other hand, also gets 1 win. And Dale Jarrett still with Richard Petty, and they're starting to suck as well. That's sad. Now, Richmond wins exactly 1 race this year, and it was after spinning Jeff Gordon for the win at Watkins Glen. Ooh. Ooh, drama. Oh, that's drama. So Gordon's like super pissed and stuff, and he starts losing his focus, and he actually ends up in the very next race taking out Tim Richmond and himself. Guess what this means? The point swing is big enough to change the champion. Mark Martin wins the 1997 championship. Yes. Oh, I found a way. I found a way, ladies and gentlemen. I found a way. Mark Martin's going to win the 1997 championship. Ken Schrader's going to end up second in the standings with 5 wins. The monster. Jeff Gordon third in the standings with 9 wins. Terry Labonte in 7th. Bobby Labonte in 8th. Tim Richmond in 9th. Yay. I can end the video now. That's how good this is. So, at the end of 1997, Joe Gibbs, you know, an honest and godly man, the true Christian that he is, he drops Tim Richmond for his antics in 1997. And he was also, you know, underperforming compared to Bobby Labonte. But yeah. So the 88 is renumbered to 20. And Tony Stewart joins the party. Oh, yeah. 1998, here comes Tony. Now, Robert Yates is going to expand to 2 cars. Ken Schrader is going to remain in the 28. But since the 88 was renumbered to 20, they are able to take the 88. And Sterling Marlin finally leaves McClure. What does this mean for Felix Sabates? Well, I was thinking there's a good chance that Felix Sabates, of all people, would maybe sign Tim Richmond after he gets dropped from Joe Gibbs. And we could probably go on for like another 20 minutes detailing how he struggles throughout like 98, 99, and 2000 until 2001 and 2002 when Sabates is extremely strong with Chip Ganassi. However, my neck's starting to hurt, so we're just going to say that doesn't happen. Felix Sabates signs Dale Jarrett to drive the 40 car. And Ted Musgrave, he goes to Morgan McClure to replace Sterling Marlin. And it's actually Ricky Craven who ends up going to the 43 to replace Dale Jarrett. And through it all, shunned from NASCAR, Tim Richmond leaves the series at age 42 after the 1997 season. He ends out his career with 34 wins and the 1989 championship. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how the cookie crumbles. There you go. There's what if Tim Richmond did not get AIDS. It was a long one. I should have made this video a long time ago, and I apologize for making you wait. But just think about it. I could have made you wait longer if I decided to keep him in the 40. Just think about that next time. Next time that you're pissed at me, alright? Yep, I think that's about the video, so. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching this. This is another What If. I like these. These are fun. I do. I really like them. But the point that I'm trying to make is that Tim Richmond, if he didn't die, I mean, he probably would have been extremely successful. Who knows if he would have won multiple championships, but I'd say that 34 career wins is a decent estimate. Probably around the 25 to 35 range, I would say, for Tim Richmond if he does leave Hendrick early. I mean, if he stayed at Hendrick his entire career, there's a good chance that he would have gone into his 50s and probably might have been replaced by Kyle Busch. Ultimately, when he retired, he'd be pulling the Terry Labonte, right? But there'd also be a good chance that Hendrick would actually end up dropping Terry Labonte despite his 1996 championship and keeping Richmond in the car. And that would have to be Rick Hendrick's tough decision, whether or not to keep either the aging Richmond or the aging but not quite as old. Oh wow, we got a Rick Allening in. 51-minute long video. And we still managed to get a Rick Allening in. Good shit. Good shit, Rick Allen. But anyway, like I said, who knows? And if Tim Richmond, did end up in the Joe Gibbs, if he retired at Gibbs, like on his own terms, would he? What the hell is that sound? That is terrifying. That's like a goddamn ghost train. That's the. Can you hear that? That is terrifying. I hope you can hear that because that's the scariest shit. If he was at Gibbs, would he? Because there's a good chance that he could retire, like when Bobby Labonte left in 2005. But if Bobby Labonte still stayed on the team somehow, if they opened the 11 car early and whatnot. But I'd say that Tim Richmond's probably upper limit. I would think that Tim Richmond would be a guy who actually would retire around age 42 to 45, I think that would be around his range. But, I think probably, honestly, if we're thinking about it, he would stay in the series until he wasn't competitive. But still, you want to think that maybe he would have retired early. I don't know. It's just a variety of things going on with this what if. But the point is, it's done. I need to stop recording this so I can upload it. I'm sorry. Please don't hate me. Yeah. So there you go. That's the what if. Thanks for watching. This has been What If Tim Richmond was still alive and never got AIDS. This has been Kamikaze Games. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.